What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin Davis of Drone Camps RC, and what you might not have known about me is that before I was a drone guy, I was an airplane guy and I was a heli guy. And for many years I flew 3D helis, built 700 helis, 500, 600, 450s, all the way down to the tiny T-Rex 150. Had a lot of fun with helis for years and years, and today on the channel, we're going to talk about the Eachine E180 here, and this is an alternative to the OMPHOBBY series. So we're going to talk about the features on this heli. We're going to talk about some differences between this one and the M1 series down there. This is a little smaller version of both of these types of helis, and we're going to talk about the M2 as well in comparison in this video. But most importantly, today we're going to focus on this direct drive system of the E180, talk about the motor, how powerful this guy is, and you guys get to see my blooper today where I had this heli spool up and cut my wrist. So it's going away now, and just a scratch and a nick, but it could have been way worse. So be super careful when you're playing around with helis, because really bad things can happen. So it does come with a 3S 700 milliamp battery, so we're going to go ahead and charge that up. We're going to go out to the field, and I'm going to show you my flight experience with the E180. After that, we'll come back in here to the bench and we'll check it out, and I'll show you a little closer up the E180. Here we go.
All right guys, here we are with the E180, and I'm gonna go ahead and plug in the battery. I have it bound up with the TX16S. I will get this up in the air. We will fly it with stability mode on at first, and then we'll try the full 3D mode. But I think that this one is a pretty good comparison to the M2, so we'll see how it does in the flight test in comparison. I know you guys want to know that, and I'm gonna let you know in this review. I'll also let you know how the 180 FBL does in this review as well. It also has the same options on here for S-Bus, external receiver, and DSM and DSMX. It also has a bind button on the side for an internal receiver as well. XT30 up front. I've got my 3S 700 milliamp battery ready to go, and we're just going to go ahead and fire it up and do some flying. So I want to make sure it's on a flat and level surface when I plug it in, because it does have a gyroscope inboard. And when you see it twitch, you are good to go. Well, I was fucking getting it. Ouch. Ouch, ouch. Well, don't try that at home, guys. Alright guys, it's been a few years since I did that, but I didn't realize that I had my idle switch on what I thought was going to be my throttle hold switch, and man, I've been doing helis for like decades. But this little guy will cut you. It kind of jumped up and was in idle up and just kind of caught my wrist. I tried to back up from it, but I was sitting too close, and yeah, that's what we did today. Sliced up my wrist pretty good, but I do have some alcohol in the car because it's COVID time right now, and we all have alcohol on us. So I just get a little alcohol, and it'll stop the bleeding, and we'll be back to flying. I'll just go ahead and get it up in the air and continue the review. That's the dangers of the trade. So here we go. Let's do some flying. All right, here we go, guys. I'm going to stand back this time, and we're going to go ahead and spool up. I'm going to let it spool all the way up for a good amount, and then we're going to come off the ground. And it's in stabilized mode right now, so if I move the stick like to the right, she goes back to stable. Isn't that cool? So this is a complete beginner mode, and so far, guys, it's flying exactly like the M2. It almost sounds like it has more throttle, and after it cut me a good time, I believe it. So the blades look pretty balanced. Let's check out the yaw. Yaw seems to be pretty fast, and I'm in idle up number 1 right now. Very smooth, very quiet. You definitely want to catch this helicopter in the face or the head, so keep a good distance when you're flying this one. It did cut me pretty good on the wrist. And that was just on startup. So helis are dangerous. This is definitely not a kid's toy. Let's check out the pitch bump. Not bad. Now we're in full 3D mode. Looking pretty good. Nice flips. Still forward one. Looking good. And I don't know what the rates are. I mean, I could go into dual rates. We also have dual rates on this heli on a switch as well, so I can get more throw. Let's go for a big aileron roll. There we go. Nice. And I wonder if she'll handle TikToks. Seems so quiet. Not the greatest TikTok in the world, but we'll take that one because I really don't want to slam dunk it in the snow today. Man, it's really smooth. Really nice flying heli. And you could put a camera on this one. I wouldn't recommend doing any kind of FPV with this. I mean, it could really take you out or somebody else. So you want to look out for other people and dogs and all that stuff when you're flying, man. It seems like dogs love helis for some reason. You guys have ever been flying a heli, you've probably seen a dog at some point. They love them. So be careful when you're switching flight modes and all that. Try not to look down too much at your transmitter if you're brand new. Just a tip for the new guys. And I'm still in 3D mode here. I'm going to switch back to stabilize and come back over to us. Man, I think I'm going to get like an 8-minute flight time with this copter. Let's come in and get a little bit closer for a nice camera shot. E180. The E180 that bit me. I don't want it to bite me in the face, so I'm not going to do that again. Don't try that at home. But I like the Canopy. The Canopy is definitely different than the OMPHOBBY M2 series. This one just looks a little more like a Goblin or a T-Rex or something like that from a line. It has a more modern look to it, maybe. But I think that as far as beginners are concerned, the M2 canopy and the M1 canopies are easier to see at a distance when you go out a little bit. But this one has that nice bright nose on it. And I kind of like that yellow. The yellow and green there looks good. Let's do some high-speed passes. Okay, this copter will get going pretty fast. Wow. So smooth. I don't want to lose sight of it. Wow, so fast. Quiet. Swing that tail around. Kind of lose sight of it over with the trees as a background. And I'm coming back, and you guys want to learn how to hover nose in first. There's some dogs over to my right, so man, that always seems to be the case. I'm going to come over here and land pretty quickly. Here they come. Little tiny guy. And we're going to kill it. There we go. Man, that's a nice flying heli, you know. It looks good, it flies good, and it bit me on the arm. No business flying this one, right guys? Oh man, this was cool. So I'm glad that I got to fly in all the different flight modes that it has. I think that I probably wasn't in the number 2 idle up because it didn't sound quite as hopped up as the M2. So you want to make sure that you put your idle switch on a 3-position switch so that you get idle up 1 and idle up 2. Because the first position won't be anything, it'll just be regular style spool up, like a slow start. And then idle up 1 will be on position 2, and 3 will be your mode 2, your idle 2. So that'll give you like 100%, and the first one will give you about 80% on this copter. But man, she is a beast, right? Total beast. So let's go check it out on the bench. Let me show you guys what this little guy is all about, and we will see how it compares to the M2. We'll put them side by side on the bench and give you a full comparison of the head, the body, and everything, the tail, and the canopy. All the components. Flight controllers as well. Here we go. It could have been worse. I mean, no stitches today, guys. But you can get them, so be careful with helis. They will bite you hard.
All right, guys, welcome back from the flight test. Yeah, my arm is healing up pretty good there. And the funny thing is, you know, I was wearing a jacket. I'm usually wearing a jacket in the winter, of course, because it's freezing cold outside, right? But for some reason I had my jacket pulled up, and instead of cutting a hole through my jacket, it cut a hole through my arm. Now, it could have been much worse. I was kind of checking it after it happened to see how much gap I had there, and you have a lot of tendons coming through here, so you got to be careful. If you sever something in here, you could need surgery. So I was lucky enough that it didn't go very deep, and I have to tell you, man, these little blades are sharp. So even on this side, they are super, super sharp. Like, just running your finger across them, they feel like a kitchen knife. So yeah, with that said, this heli is not a total beginner heli. This is something for someone that has already had a few helis, maybe even a larger 300 size heli, and you just want something that really rock and rolls in a 180 format. This little guy has a lot of power, and it will 3D like a champ. It will also do mild sport flying, and a lot of the times when I'm flying, that's mostly what I'm doing. Sport flying is just kind of flying around forward flight, doing some mild maneuvers, some inverted flips and rolls, and you know, maybe the occasional tick-tock. Now, it is interesting, on the website it does say that this one is FHSS receiver protocol on here, so I believe it would bind up with the OMPHOBBY transmitter. I have one there, and the switches might be a little different on this heli setup versus this one. I know that you can bind this transmitter up with the M1 or the M2 totally fine, and the switches work as advertised. They might be switched around on this one, so you'll have to figure out where everything is. That's the biggest difference between the E180, buying this one, and buying one of the OMPHOBBY ones. If you don't have a transmitter already and you don't know how to set up a heli on, say, something like the TX16S, which is what I flew this one on. So when I set mine up, I had a few things wrong on the switches, and that was my problem. So I had the arm switch, what I thought was my throttle kill, ended up being my idle switch. So yeah, she went straight into like 80% to 100% idle, and that's where she bit me on the wrist. So be super careful setting those up. It also says on the Banggood website, indoor, outdoor use. This is not an indoor helicopter. Do not fly this baby inside. This is insane. Don't even fly the M1 inside. Like, it's just ridiculous. It's not a toy. This is an adult toy for outside use only. So it does come with a better battery than the OMPHOBBY heli. The heli that the battery that the OMPHOBBY comes with is the 3S650 for the M2, and these are not the exact same size. Even though this looks similar to the M2, this is actually a little smaller than the M2, and I'll pull this out of the box and give you a comparison, and it's much bigger than the M1. So beginners, I would recommend you guys start out with an M1 and this transmitter. Super fun, super easy, and this little baby rock and rolls 3D, or it does stability flying with a gyro that gives you stability assistance. You just push the stick forward and it auto levels for you. But all these copters have the same auto level system. The Eachine version is a little different, but they still have a gyro in there, and it's virtually the same. I think the biggest difference is, like, right away visually for these helis versus the Eachine versus the OMPHOBBY is that Eachine added a little more carbon fiber on theirs. They added carbon fiber landing gear, which I think looks super sweet. We all like that. They also did a carbon fiber tail boom, and their canopy for this size heli is a plastic one, which is cheaper to replace. It's a little cheaper to replace this one if you had to buy a new one. You can get parts for this heli as well, which is super awesome. I'll put a link down in the description below. We have digital metal servos on here, metal geared servos, which is really what we need. And you can kind of see like at the very top of the servo here, there's that metal top plate there. So just underneath that servo head right there, that servo arm, there are metal gears inside here. So that means if you do crash, it's likely that you're not going to bust up your servo. And digital tail servo as well, and 2 digital ones on the side here. And this is not actually controlling the tail because it's a bi-directional motor back here. And this is an 1104 motor from Eachine. Pretty sweet. So it is a direct drive system. There is no rotor, there is no belt or torque tube coming down this tail. But I thought it was cool that they used carbon fiber tail because everyone likes a carbon fiber tail on a heli. It just looks cool. And unlike the M1 has a plastic body. The M2 has carbon fiber body, and the E180 has a carbon fiber body, which all of us do love. And it's very similar again to that Goblin series helis where everything up in the head is super simplified here. And you can see this swash is kind of off level right now, but when you turn on the heli, this middle swash right here should all level out and things should go completely level. If it's hanging to one side, that means you probably have a problem, so be careful there. And if you're setting this up bind and fly, you also want to make sure that this swash moves the direction of travel that it's supposed to. So aileron left, right, and then elevator should go back and up just like that, back and down. So very important that the swash is moving the right direction, and as well as on the throttle stick for moving the heli up and down in positive and negative pitch for the collective. So a little bit of learning curve here if you've never played around with the heli, but all these parts and pieces are also available. If you throw one of these, we'll look in the box and see how much extras they gave us. And on the very bottom here is that super beastie Hulk series. It says Sherpa's Hobby on there, Zhang, and it shows you the direction of travel. 3606 Hulk brushless motor. And these motors are no joke. They are huge. And what I did like about this one versus the M2 and the M1 is that this one has a releasable battery tray. So right here, there's a little clip, and this carbon fiber tray comes out, which is cool. So you can strap up your battery to this little guy and slide it right in, like kind of like the bigger helis, like a 700 size heli has a battery tray. And some of the 550s and 600s also have that, but isn't that cool? There's a whole lot of aluminum parts on here as well, underneath, holding your landing gear on. Super nice there. One piece in the front, and there is a tail boom, aluminum block, aluminum head block in here, rotor, everything up here. The whole rotary system on top is all aluminum, but super nice. And I can't remember which way that goes in. I believe it goes in like this. But there's two slots that it slides into, and this should just slide back and clip into place. You want to make sure this slides back all the way, but you want to make sure that it's not touching the motor, the battery. So when you put this in there, super important that this is not touching the motor. And it has a little block there that kind of blocks that from happening. But this is also a bigger battery than what you get with the M1 or the M2. So 700 milliamp got me around about, I'd say around 8 minutes flight time. And this is the Eachine E180 FBL flight controller. And this does 2 different modes on here. We got stability mode and full 3D mode. You'll see a LED light. It also has a bind button on the side right here, just like the OMPHOBBY version does. And it also has S-Bus support here for S-Bus receivers, and DSM and DSM-X controllers protocol for your receiver. So Spectrum guys, you're not left out in the cold here. That's really cool. And that wire is sticking up just a little high. Plugs into one port on the side, and we've got our XT30 here that goes down and under to the battery. And the rotors on these blades here, the length of it is 400 millimeter. The height is around 120 millimeter. And We have the weight around, I believe the weight was around 300 grams. So it's not under 250 grams with the canopy and the battery. It's gonna be over 300 grams. So if you're looking for a heli that's like under 250 grams, the M1 is the one to get there. But let me show you how different the M1 is in comparison. The M1 comes with a nice little case like this, and there she is. Now these are nice helis. It's hard to compete with the OMP heli series, but there is the difference. And the other thing that I didn't get in the box with the Eachine version versus the OMP Hobby is a tail blade holder. I really like a tail blade holder with my helis because these are flopping around a lot of the times. I tuck them back and they're still kind of flopping around. But that's the biggest difference there between both of those, and pretty good size difference. And again, if you're a beginner, start out with the M1 and maybe get an E180 later, or if you want to be matchy, grab yourself an M2 or make a fleet of these. I know some heli guys just buy one of each. And that's how helis seem to go. Helis and RC cars, but it's all the same for me. Airplanes, I have to have them all. And I'm gonna show you the M2, and you'll be surprised the size of the M2 versus all of these, really. And this is the M2 here. So M2, M1, all the way out in front. And you can see here, they're quite a bit different here. Let me just zoom out and show you guys that. And that's from the center of the main shaft. So the tail on that's just a little bit longer, and the canopy looks much bigger, much bigger. So M2 as a beginner heli, I know some people are buying this as a beginner heli. You can do that. It is very easy to see. You can fly in stability mode. Very easy to bind up with this transmitter. It only takes a second. You basically turn it on, hit the bind button, and then all of this is moving the right direction in the transmitter. We have plastic landing gear here. We have carbon fiber body. This is a Sunny Sky motor, which is a very nice motor. We have aluminum tail boom back here with no internal moving parts. It is direct drive heli again, but very nice head block here. We have also the difference between this canopy and the E180 is that this one is a full-fledged fiberglass canopy, like a lot of the more pro helis come with, like T-Rex and Goblin. So that's cool. But then again, Eachine is always keeping the cost down for you if you're looking for something for cheaper parts. This is going to have cheaper parts, but I mean, we're literally talking probably 50 cents to $1 difference on some of the parts. They're not super expensive, but again, like plastic landing gear here, carbon fiber here on the landing gear, and another aluminum tail boom. It'd be cool if OMP did some upgrades for that, maybe a carbon fiber tail boom for the OMP hobby stuff. And this one's a plastic canopy. So the M1 has a plastic canopy like the E180. But as far as flight characteristics, they all fly really similar. I don't see a whole lot of difference between the E180 versus the M1 and the M2. This one flies great for how small it is. This one is a beast if you want it to be. M2 is really rock and roll. And the E180, it can be mild to wild, as you can see. But yeah, the front of these blades on the Eachine blades are way sharper than either the OMP hobby helis. The M1 is not super sharp on the front. It's fairly beveled, and this one's fairly beveled too. And this one has a bit of an edge to it. You can hear it. So yeah, great flying helis all around. So really, it's kind of up to you guys, really, which one you want to go for. If you were to ask me, out of all three of these, I might pick up the M2 just because I've been flying helis for years. And if I had to go for one out of all three of these, it'd be the M2. Cost-wise, the E180 is a great deal. The E180 comes in for bind and fly setup, $266, and then the full version with a controller, you can actually get a radio with this one. It's around $322. So if you're stuck on the E180 and you love this carbon fiber everything, go for the one with the transmitter if you're brand new, and that way all of your switches will be set up out of the box. I think that's the better deal. So for the OMP Hobby price wise, we're looking the M1 or the controller itself is around $60 if you bought this by itself, but the M1 comes in at around $249 for this little guy. So they are quite pricey. It's gonna get you up to the $300 range. Now the M2 comes in at around $349, and that's without the transmitter. So this is gonna put you up, this transmitter is $60 again. So this is gonna put you up to around the $400 range for a transmitter and the M2 and a battery. And then you'll have to obviously buy more batteries. So you're gonna end up around $420, $440 for that M2. But if you want to get it bind and fly, you can get it. You can also get an M2 EXP, which is around $279. It's just a little different design than the original M2 here. So a little older design, I think. You guys will have to let me know down in the comments below. But the cool thing is that you can get parts for all of these. It's not like a one-off Walmart helicopter that you crash one time and it's done. So parts are available, you can fix them. And yeah, so those are my 3 favorite helis at the moment, and I've been flying the crap out of these. So let's go ahead and end up this review, guys, and I will see you on the next one. Stay safe out there and watch that idle up. It will bite you. I'm Justin Davis, guys. Take care. Super cool, super beautiful E180 on the channel. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.